The Spartans of ancient Greece have long been portrayed as fierce warriors, fearless in battle and unwavering in discipline. Yet, beyond the legend of their military prowess lies a deeper story, one of struggle, sacrifice, and the complex reality of life in a society built on the ideals of duty and honor. It was the year 431 BCE, and Sparta stood on the precipice of war with Athens. The Peloponnesian War, a conflict that would shape the fate of Greece, loomed over the land. Among the young warriors preparing for battle was Lysandros, a Spartan youth who had spent his life in the Agoge, the rigorous training system designed to forge the perfect soldier. From the age of 7, he had known only discipline, hardship, and the relentless pursuit of excellence. Every day was a test, every failure punished, and every success merely a step toward greater expectations. Lysandros had never known his mother's comfort beyond infancy, nor had he experienced the warmth of a father's embrace. Spartan society did not allow for such softness. His father, a veteran of countless battles, had rarely spoken to him except to critique his form in combat drills or remind him that a Spartan's duty was to the state before all else. He had witnessed fellow trainees falter under the relentless pressure, only to be cast aside, deemed unworthy of the Spartan name. Weakness was not tolerated. Pain was expected. The war against Athens began with the promise of Spartan dominance. The city-state had honed its warriors to near perfection, their shield formations impenetrable, their discipline unmatched. But even the strongest warriors were not immune to the toll of war. Lysandros fought in his first battle at the age of 20. His youth stripped away in the clash of spears and the cries of dying men. He learned quickly that the enemy was not weak, that they did not flee at the sight of a Spartan phalanx. The Athenians fought with cunning, using their navy to cut supply lines and their walls to hold off even the mightiest assault. It was during one of these grueling campaigns that Lysandros found himself stranded behind enemy lines, separated from his unit after a failed assault on an Athenian outpost. Wounded and alone, he sought refuge in a dense forest, his body aching from exhaustion and blood loss. It was here that he encountered a young Athenian named Callias, a soldier barely older than himself, who had also been left behind. For hours, the two warriors stared at each other, their hands twitching near their weapons, but neither attacked. They were enemies by birth, trained to hate one another, yet in that moment, they were simply two young men caught in the merciless gears of war. Callias was not what Lysandros had been taught to expect. He was not weak, nor was he cowardly. He spoke of Athens not with arrogance but with pride in its culture, its democracy, and its people. He questioned why they fought, why two of the greatest city-states of Greece sought to destroy each other when they had once stood united against Persia. Lysandros had no answer. He had never been taught to question, only to obey. Over the next 2 days, the two soldiers nursed their wounds, wary but unwilling to strike each other down. In the darkness of night, Callias spoke of his family, of his dreams beyond war. He longed to be a philosopher, to study under the great minds of Athens. Lysandros listened, realizing for the first time how little he knew of the world beyond the battlefield. The Agoge had prepared him for war, but it had left him blind to the beauty of art, to the depth of knowledge that Athens cherished. On the 3rd day, a Spartan scouting party found Lysandros. Callias could have run, could have left him to his fate, but he did not. Instead, he stood by him, knowing full well what Spartans did to their enemies. The soldiers hesitated, confused by the sight before them. A Spartan and an Athenian, not fighting, but standing side by side. It was unthinkable. Lysandros made his choice then, stepping forward and vouching for Callias, claiming he was a valuable prisoner who could provide intelligence. It was a lie, but one that spared Callias' life, at least for the moment. Back in the Spartan camp, Callias was bound and interrogated, but he refused to betray his city. Lysandros watched, torn between duty and the strange bond he had formed with the Athenian. Days passed, and when it became clear that Callias would not yield, the decision was made. He would be executed. That night, Lysandros made a choice that would brand him a traitor in the eyes of Sparta. He freed Callias, leading him beyond the camp's borders, ensuring his escape. The consequences were swift. When his actions were discovered, Lysandros was brought before his superiors. His father, standing among them, looked at him with a mixture of fury and sorrow. There would be no trial, no mercy. A Spartan who defied the laws of war, who showed weakness, was not worthy of his name. He was to be exiled, stripped of his citizenship, his honor erased from history. Lysandros did not beg for forgiveness. He accepted his fate, knowing that in sparing Callias, he had found something greater than the ideal Sparta had forced upon him. He had found humanity in the face of war, the realization that strength was not merely in the body but in the heart, in the ability to choose compassion over blind obedience. Exile was a fate worse than death for a Spartan. He wandered the Greek world, a soldier without a country, a warrior without a cause. He saw the wonders of Athens, the splendor of the Parthenon, the vibrancy of its people. He met philosophers who debated the nature of justice, poets who wove words into beauty, and merchants who spoke of lands beyond Greece. He learned that there was more to life than war, that a man was not defined solely by the sword he carried. Years later, when the Peloponnesian War finally ended, Lysandros heard of Sparta's victory but also of its decline. The rigid system that had once made it strong had begun to crack, unable to adapt to a changing world. The walls of Athens had been torn down, its empire shattered, yet its ideas lived on, spreading beyond its fallen walls. Lysandros never returned to Sparta. He lived out his days in a small town, far from the echoes of war, a man who had once been forged in the flames of battle but had chosen a different path. He was no longer a Spartan by name, but he had discovered what it truly meant to be strong, not through conquest but through understanding. The real Spartans were not just warriors. They were men shaped by duty, bound by tradition, but capable of more than the world allowed them to be. Their legend would live on, but beyond the tales of battle and glory lay the untold stories of those like Lysandros, who found the courage to seek a life beyond the spear and shield.